James Gunn has a very interesting choice in front of him during what I imagine is a very confusing time for him as well. Does he craft his own Batman for the DC universe, or does he end up folding to Matt Reeves' version, which is already embraced, already successful, and already understood? And does he do this all during a time when the larger parent company of Warner Brothers' future is up in the air? It's not a creative question, it's a psychological one. Because whichever decision he makes, he's deciding what kind of story fans believe they are participating in. See, audiences aren't choosing a Batman, they are choosing a narrative path. When fans argue about Reeves' Batman versus Gunn's potential Batman, they're not really debating just aesthetics or tone. They're choosing what kind of story they want to invest years into. Reeves' Batman is grounded, personal, an actual detective myth rooted in trauma and uncertainty. Gunn's Batman, on the other hand, if he creates one, likely will be different. Perhaps more symbolic, perhaps more interwoven with a larger universe, which in turn would make him more mythic than intimate. These are two different forms of emotional commitment, and history shows that audiences don't like switching commitments midstream. This is why the decision is delicate, and not because fans can't handle multiple Batmen, but more so because each version frames the audience's identity as a participant in a different kind of myth. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Fans build psychological contracts with their heroes. We always have. There's a behavior known in storytelling psychology as a continuity bond. It's the idea that once fans attach themselves to a character, they begin to build a long-term emotional contract with them. Not with the studio, not even with the brand, but with that version of the character. This is why Robert Pattinson's Batman created such a strong reaction, not just because it was a proper interpretation, but it also was a proper journey, a slow, fragmented unraveling of a Gotham through a lens general audiences hadn't quite seen before. If Gunn replaces that with a different Batman, the psychology kind of shifts a little bit. The bond, it resets, the contract, it breaks. Fans might start to feel like they're being asked to abandon a journey that they never really got to finish at all, and audiences don't like unfinished journeys. That creates cognitive tension, a kind of emotional dissonance, that makes them resist the newer versions, even if they're good. And yet, if Gunn creates his own Batman, he must acknowledge the shadow of the other. See, if Gunn goes with a completely new Batman, he's not competing with Matt Reeves per se. He's competing with the fan imagination surrounding Matt Reeves. And that's a bit harder, because imagination grows in the gaps, in the what-if sequels yet to be made, in the feeling of momentum. To introduce a new Batman is to interrupt that momentum, and audiences will instinctively fight that interruption unless they feel the new story offers something larger than what they lost. Not necessarily louder or funnier or even more connected, just larger in meaning. Because historically, fans don't just stay loyal to continuity, they actually stay loyal to meaning. However, bringing Reeves' Batman into the DCU also can create a bit of a different problem: narrative displacement. See, if Gunn absorbs Reeves' Batman into his universe, the story risks something else entirely. It loses its psychological autonomy, if you will. Reeves' world is built as a closed system, a terrarium of gothic emotion and broken people. When you pull that Batman into a shared universe, you kind of change how the audience interprets him. Suddenly, the isolated grief becomes team compatible, the paranoia becomes plot decoration, and the solitude becomes optional. And a character who once felt like a human in a broken down city becomes a player in a corporate constructed tapestry. That's the danger. Fans aren't afraid of universes, they're afraid of dilution. Thus, the choice isn't really about Batman, it's about trust. And James Gunn stands at a bit of a crossroads. If he creates his own Batman, then fans must trust him enough to abandon a version that they already believe in. If he adopts Reeves' Batman, fans must trust that the integrity of that world won't be absorbed into something tonally incompatible. Both choices have consequences, both choices shape the psychology of the fandom he's trying to rebuild. But the deeper truth is this: audiences don't just follow characters, they follow the promises that those characters represent. And whichever Batman Gunn chooses, he's not just choosing a hero, he's choosing the promise that he wants the new DC universe to make. A promise fans will most likely remember.